Hello everyone, welcome on the Unlisted channel. I am Ogre, and I think that's probably that some of you are new on the channel. Perhaps this is the first time that you discover this channel, perhaps also that this is the last time that you come. I hope no, but I would understand as the usual content is in French. But welcome on this channel with this particularly special video, as the idea is to introduce you to the team Belgium, the team that will defend Belgium at the 9th Age European Team Championship 2022. As Belgium has multiple official languages and has the competitive world of Ninth Age in Belgium is made in English, and as the communication within the team are made in English, this video will be integrally in English, but subtitles will be available in French. So the idea of this video, of course, is to have a quick word from the captain, a general comment on the team. How did he choose the players? How did he choose the armies that compose the team? What was the preparation of the team? What is the idea behind the meta? What are the objectives, etc. After that, we will move on a quick presentation of each player with their background, with their objectives for this ETC, and some of them have their first ever ETC this year, so this should be interesting. And after that, we will go deeper into the game by talking about the army composition, the lists, and also, again, the role of each list in the team meta, before finishing with a quick word to the community, and especially the Belgian community as a whole, from, of course, the captain Artur, but also all the players that have participated to the video. I would like to already thank all the players that participated to this video, that took the time to talk a little bit about them, to introduce themselves, their list, etc. I will do myself a small comment at the end of the video, and we are now moving on a quick word from the Team Belgium captain. So we are now moving on the interesting part of this video after the small introduction by myself, and we will directly start with the captain of Team Belgium. Welcome Artur on the channel. This is the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Ogre.
We will not introduce you in details now because as you're also a player, you will have your dedicated parts after that. But perhaps as a small introduction, you could perhaps explain how is the selection process functioning in Belgium? In Belgium, how we determine who will be the captain, how we determine who will be the co-captain, and things like that.
Yeah. Generally speaking, the captain is pretty much an anointed position, as in, I became captain because the previous captain asked me. That sounds fairly undemocratic, but that's the way it's supposed to work. That's the way that is enshrined in the ETC charter. As in, the captain of the last year's team is also the one who gets to decide, who is the captain of the next team. There's certain countries, of course, that diverge from that, like France. I'm sure that, if the Belgian community really thought I was doing a terrible job, they could all tell me and obviously resign. But generally speaking, I just became captain because Geoffrey asked me, and Geoffrey became captain because he was asked, etc., etc. Being captain, it's then my position to pick the other. It's then my job to pick the other 8 players, the other 8 players for the team. And this year we had about 25 candidacies. We had about 25 people who wanted to play for the team, which is really a lot, of course. We, back in the winter of 2021, narrowed that down to 16 players. And out of those 16 players, an A team and a B team, we then decided to pick, the final team. I had 2 co-captains helping me with that, Valmir and IHDarklord. And I asked them to be my co-captains to help me out, with practical stuff, also, as feedback, as people who I could talk to about my ideas and who could give me their ideas. And so together, we last month, I was in May actually, we sat together for, I would guess, about 5-6 hours, discussing all of the players, all of the 16 players that applied, saying, all right, this guy, not this year, this guy definitely, but really also evaluating player performances, really being fair towards everybody, strong points, weak points, how invested are they, how hard are they working, how experienced are they, how much are they invested in the community, etc. And based on those discussions, we then picked a team. Obviously, I carry the full responsibility, as in, anybody who was upset that they didn't make the team should be upset at me, not at Valmir or at Guy. But that's basically how we did it, and I was quite happy. This was my first year as captain. I took over from Joffrey at the start of this year, from Gregor. But I'm really happy with how it went, and I'm quite sure we have the strongest possible lineup.
Okay, perfect. Very very nice. Just to explain, so to the French people probably that would listen to this video, it is completely different from a qualification process like in France. So in Belgium, like you said, we have a captain design. We have a captain that is chosen by the previous captain, and then based on the most objective criteria possible, and we'll just have a small talk about it. He decides who is coming to the ETC. So you already introduced it, but perhaps can you a bit develop on the criteria used not only to select the 8 final players, but also to select perhaps the pre-team. I think there was about 20 people in December. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
so what were the criteria used in December, and what were the criteria used now in I think that was in May to select the final team?
So in there's obviously some sort of a form of self-selection, as in, people who just start up playing tournaments, obviously they don't apply for the ETC team. Players who are not committed enough, to make a trip to Italy for 3 or 4 days, obviously they don't apply for the ETC team. So there's a form of self-selection at work even before the first round of selection. But then amongst the first applicants, we make a first selection, because I think it was about 25 applications, 24, 23, 24, 25, 26, something like that. I don't remember the number by heart. But that's really a lot of people to keep track of their performances, to give feedback on their games, to watch their games. And I really want to be able to, I was advised in this by the previous captain, Gregor, I really wanted to be able to follow everybody, really not just, trust me when they say, oh, I went to a tournament and I won 20-0 2 times and then had really horrible luck, and that's the only why I didn't win the reason why I didn't win the tournament. I really want to be able to watch people's games, understand their game. And so for that reason, we narrowed it down to 16 players based on previous results, based on the answers that they gave to a questionnaire. So based on previous performance and what we knew about their games, we narrowed it down from about 24 to about 16 players, which was already a really hard task, of course, because there were no bad players applying. Really, all of the guys were super solid. But we really wanted active players who we know play a lot of tournaments, who we know play a lot of games, get the reps in, and play well in tournaments, have decent to good results. And then obviously we trying to really keep tabs on all of the 16 players that we selected throughout the years, really watching their games, asking them to debrief their games online, write little reports, write little analyses of their games, discuss their mistakes. And this is something that I put a lot of emphasis on. I don't want to know that you crushed your buddy in the garage 20-0 3 times. What I want to know is, I made a mistake, and this is what I learned from it, and this is, how I should have played it. This really, improvement, self-improvement, learning from the game. That's really something that I was looking for. People who were eager to get better and who were eager to play the best possible. So that was the first thing that I really screened for. The second thing that we paid attention to was obviously, playing a lot of games, being active, making sure that you're in good shape, making sure that you're, you have the experience, that you know how to play the game. And then obviously, skill level was most often the deciding factor. In the end, we went for whom we believed were going to be the 8 best performing players. That's not necessarily the players who would do the top 8 in a singles tournament, because there's different roles. There's a very particular thing to playing the ETC. You're obviously not looking for 20s and zeros. You're looking for 12s and 11s. Player skill was in the end the decisive factor. For instance, somebody like Pascal hasn't maybe been the most active this year, even if he's been more active than he would admit himself. But in terms of skill level, he's just, there's nobody in his stratosphere in the Belgian community. So that was a very easy choice for us. Maybe an even more fundamental criterion is, we want 8 nice guys that we're going to have a good time with, and that we're going to be, have a great time with in Italy, and who will be enjoyable, adversaries for their opponents, and who will give the opponents of Team Belgium a great game. That's obviously a conditio sine qua non. I wouldn't have pre-selected anyone who didn't fit that criterion. Luckily, I don't think we have any issues with that anymore in the Belgian community, or very, very little. It used to be different. I remember back in the day when I just started.
Yeah, that's very very interesting that those mental aspects come into play, and also commenting on the fact that you decided to do a pre-group, but I remember also that the doors were left open for other people. I will take my personal case as an example. For example, I applied to the team, but not really to be part of the team. I think I already explained it in French, but I will remind it. So as I directly highlighted, I could not attend the ETC this year, and the idea was just to meet people, do my first step in the team, do practice games,
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So that also was very interesting to that the team was accessible. I would say to be able to train with better players that make learning and that can give real hopes for next year's. So that was a really cool aspect, to be honest, as I was kind of external
Mm-hmm.
member of the team.
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. I think that's probably the most important function of the ETC team is probably to be a pillar of the community, much like tournament organizing is. Our training days are a great opportunity for people to come and to play with some really, really, really good players and to really learn from them. And that's I think a really important aspect of what Team Belgium means to the Belgian wargaming community. And this inclusiveness, everybody can be part of the team. The team is open to everybody. It's really the start of everything. And I think that goes throughout the year. For instance, your own case is a very interesting one. You signaled when you applied to the team, you were like, well, I can't really go to the ETC this year. That obviously creates a particular situation. But if at some point, you had told us, well, I can actually make it, well, you were very active this year and you're obviously an excellent player. At that point, we would have definitely said, all right, well, in that case, we need to rethink this. We don't exclude anyone. And Agrel is a really, really good player. He's going to be very close to the 8 or even be in the 8. And if we had decided at that point that you were part of the 8 best players, then even if you initially hadn't made the pre-selection, we would have still taken you. The same goes, for instance, with somebody like Nico, who wasn't really Prince Charming, who wasn't really active at the start of the year with COVID and everything like that, and him not liking to play online. He'd been very much out of the game, but then he got into it again. So at that point, we really took him on board and we said, like, all right, even if you didn't initially apply for the team, come along for the ride. And that's to me that's really, really important. I mean, that we're not some sort of a small elitist club. That's going to be counterproductive in the long run, anyways. If
Yeah,
we don't improve the level of the community, then our opponents will be weaker, and then we ourselves will not improve as players.
and that's very important, for the whole community, but especially the Belgian one. That you should not be afraid to apply, try your chance, because this is with probably the best players in the Belgian community that you will improve yourself. And
Absolutely.
and to be honest, I would say legends about ETC teams being only hardcore players, focusing only on the games, with minimum requirements about how to say availabilities and training weekends and things like that. These are for most parts completely false, and
Absolutely.
everybody in the team is very nice, very helpful too. So that's very interesting also, and not only in the trainings, because the Discord was very very active with everybody commenting on lists, on feedback we gave on the games, and even if you're not part of probably the final 8 or even the pre-selection, you will always have someone that comments and interact with you. And that I would say that was the very interesting part and a very very good experience on my home, and it is sure I will again apply next year.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. So perhaps before moving to the part where each player will introduce himself, do you have perhaps a small comment about the team composition? So here we are talking about the final 8. So each player will introduce himself, but perhaps you can have a small word about the fact that Team Belgium is not only 8 players, including a captain and 2 co-captains, but you will have also non-playing coaches.
Yeah, that's something, and we didn't get the maximum out of that because in the end our co-captain is Jaina, a French guy who's been hanging out with Team Belgium for 3 or 4 years, and he's really part of a community, and it's going to be great to have him. But I would really like somebody applying for the coaching spot, because I think this is such an important spot in the team. ETC hammer, as I like to call it, is very different from regular 9th age. If you play a tournament in Belgium, it's 3 games, and you need to score 20, 17, 15 to win the tournament. ETC hammer is all about turning your 11 into a 13 without risking even a 10 or risking even a 9. And for those very marginal gains, having a coach on board is so important. Somebody who can help you estimate that risk. When you have to take the big decision. All right, do I expose these 600 points in order to potentially be able to get those 2,000 points? In order to analyze those trade-offs, having a coach is really important. Same, ETC games tend to be a lot longer because they're so precise and because they're so high level. The average time for a game is about 3.5 or 4, either one of them. So they really take a lot of time, and 3 days in a row. Some people play the ESC before. That's 11 games in a row in that case. That's really, really intense. And so having a coach on board also gives you the opportunity to sometimes, relax a little, step away from the table, talk with somebody about something else in the game for 2-3 minutes, and then go into hardcore focus again. So I'm really happy that Jaina is joining us this year as a non-playing coach. He's an amazing guy. He's such a good psychologist. He really understands the game very well. He plays himself at a very good level. So he's going to be a great asset to the team.
Thank you very much, Artur, for this explanation of how the Team Belgium functions, how it trained, and what are the objectives for this year's. We can now move on a quick presentation of all the members of this team, starting again with the captain, Artur.
Hi, everyone. My name is Thomas, nickname Archer, widow without the age. And I'm 29 years old. I'm from the glorious town of Dendermonde in Belgium. But I live in Lille in north of France. And I've been playing Warhammer for slightly over half my life, I think. More or less half my life. I think I started about 15 years ago. I've only been playing dedicated tournament Warhammer for like 10 years or so. My favorite aspect of Ninth Age and of miniature gaming in general is definitely the strategic part of it. I'm absolutely not much of a hobbyist. I'm a terrible painter. I mean, I can barely glue together a model. So that aspect of the game is really lost on me. But at the same time, I do enjoy the narrative of a game. The reason why I prefer Warhammer to, let's say, chess is because I do like dragons and high elves and dark elves, goblins. I do enjoy that sort of a setting, fantasy-like setting very much. But my main interest in the game is definitely strategic. I tend to approach puzzle to solve, where your opponent creates interesting situations and weigh risks. You calculate odds. You try and take a balanced approach, but at the same time, you try to maximize your wins, minimize your losses. And it's all of the problem solving, the decision making that comes with that. Despite being the Benjamin of the team, being the youngest one, this will be my 6th ETC. I've been to 5 of them. First one I played Dread Elves back when Belgium was really, really, one of the weakest countries at the ETC. And then the year afterwards, I played Vermin Swarms, then Saurian Ancients, and then twice Highborn Elves. And in general, I think my results have more or less been, declining. Scored 81 the first time, 75 the second time, 70 something the third time, then 29 the fourth time, and last time I had 40 points. So I hope my 6th ETC will be the big rebound. I only joined basically the moment I joined the ETC community, the group of Belgian ETC players. I also immediately became part of the team. I was probably before you started playing tournaments, or at least I seem to think so. But back in the day, we used to have qualifiers, French style, where we would play against one another with full teams, which often resulted in Flanders versus Wallonia, or Flanders versus 2 Wallonian teams. And back then, Flanders was won pretty decisively. And the moment I kind of became part of that community, I also became part of the ETC team. So that was 7 years ago. That was in 2014. I don't really think I necessarily have a personal goal as in, I would like to achieve so many points. For me, the main thing that I want to do is have a result that reflects how good a player I am, which is a bit of a funny answer to the question. But I remember in the last 2 ETCs, I had the feeling I significantly underperformed. I didn't get the maximum out of my games. I made mistakes. I made errors that I wouldn't make in a practice game. I got stressed and made bad decisions. And so that's what I would like to avoid this year. That's basically, I think, my objective for this year is really to avoid that. Basically, play up to my level. And if that means I have 30 points because I get 5 or 6 horrible matches, well, then so be it. For me, it's mainly about playing up to my potential as a player. Really, getting everything out that's in it. So really, that's my objective for this year.
Thank you very much, Artur. And we now move on the first co-captain, Guy, aka Darklord.
I am Guy. I'm 30 years old. I am a co-captain of Team Belgium since this year, together with the other co-captain, Valmir, and my good friend Thomas, who is the captain of the team. And apart from that, I play Infernal Dwarves as IHDarklord at this year's ETC. I have been playing Warhammer or 9th Age or Fantasy Battles for about 14 years now. I remember I started playing when the Dark Elf book in 7th edition came out in the summer of 2008. That seems like ages ago. That was my first real army, which I played tournaments with back then already in the first year. And ever since the 9th Age came out, I continued playing those tournaments. I like to play games which make me think. And I like to play this game as a problem-solving game, like a puzzle of sorts. I bring my pieces to the table, just like my opponent, and the 9th Age gives the perfect rule set to make it an interesting, interactive game. And that's also the army I like to play most. An army that can find solutions, tackle the opponent in a very straightforward, well thought of way. I have played 2 ETCs. Started in 2018 and also played the year after. Then we had COVID for 2 years, and this will be my 3rd ETC now. That also means I've been part of Team Belgium, of the extended group of people that practice and play for 6 years now. With this year definitely being the most busy one as a co-captain. But even before that, the first year I was part of the team, I trained like hell, because in my first year I got the chance to play the ETC as well, which was amazing. Didn't think that would be possible, but yeah, it was amazing. This year, my first year as co-captain, I have set some higher expectations of the team than I would normally do. I would love for the team to get top 10 or even better at this year's ETC. There's 30 teams, and I think skill-wise we can definitely get there. We just need to focus real good and keep our heads together, head school, and don't do stupid stuff, but hopefully it will not happen. Apart from that, I'll also be doing the pairings. And I think it's also important while doing that to focus on everybody's enjoyment of the tournament and the game, because apart from being like the coolest and most massive tournament you have, it's also everybody's vacation, so you kind of want everybody to enjoy themselves as well, of course. My personal goals for this year, this is the first time I'm playing an army which I feel could achieve not losing, so that's like my first major goal kind of thing, apart from just enjoying myself to the fullest and taking in every cool moment, making sure I do as well as possible for the team, which means maximizing my own points. But I'd be very happy if I managed to win or at least draw every single game. That would be amazing.
Thank you, Guy. We can now hear from the other co-captain, aka Valmir.
I'm François. So my nickname is Valmir, and I'm 40 years old, and I'm gonna play this year Vermin Swarm for Team Belgium. I've been playing from fantasy battle since 1994, I guess, and it's now a pleasure to be part of the team and to start again big stuff with going to the ETC in Italy. What I think it's great into the 9 Age, it's a game about all problem and it's issue to solve. And what I particularly like is to be in a weird or bad situation and then turn off what seems to be a 3 or 4 results or even a null and turn that into a victory. And I think I can really do it well with my army that seems to be luck dependent, and to turn to counter tide with big combat resolution and big block of infantry that can stay forever and then push back the opponent. I've started to join the team Belgium. It was a long time ago. It was around, I think, in 2010. There was a part of a Flemish girl from Limburg at this time that were working hard to create a new community and to work to have the best team possible. So as I remember, I passed some selection and then I failed, and then we have a drop at that time, and it was in Germany. And then they say, "Oh, Frank, if you wish to go to ETC, it's possible, but you have to plead Demon Legion." And it was the beginning of my adventure. I was that time with two of my more friendly dude. It was Gregor and Gobo, who now are not anymore in the team, and it was the beginning of my investment and place into the team. From that time, I've done 4 ETC, 2 time with Demon Legion, 2 time with Bretonia, and it was an hard time from Team Belgium. We learned many stuff, and we lose a bunch of time too. But we achieve some great fun, and we never give up, and we always wish to go better and to improve for ourselves. Uh, Time going through, and years after years, there was a small choice about some different team, and between those teams there is qualification, and for 2 years I take place for a spot, but my team was was crushed, so we don't go to the ETC at this time for two and a half years. So the new goal was changed back in 2015, I guess, and it was to have the team the best possible again, and so I can apply again for the team, and I've been into the ETC back in 2018 and 2019. So for this year, I've been elected by Artur as a co-captain after some work we've done together on Discord and stuff we organize, and I was chosen. So that was really fun to be part of the choosing process, and from the part of more direction and the way to go for the team. So for this year, I've got many expectations, as we've done really big result in the 2 last ETC, in a really ETC, in 2018 and 2019. So we wish to stay as a Belgian, as a good and one of the top nation. But we have a long stop. Online tournament were really harsh for some result. Nation Cup, WTC and Nation Cup were difficult, and we have a bunch of new player fitting the team for now. So we have to see how the machine is going, and how we can manage to make the best result possible. For myself, this year, what I wish to do is to have an average to good result for myself. I know that my army can make many damage, but the problem is that is dice depending. So I've got to close the game. It's a stuff that I don't done before, because I really like open game where opponent can go to some situation, then make some mistake, and then I can turn up the tide. But the new Vermin Swarm do not allow that anymore. So I've got to close game and perhaps go out of my trench and crush the opponent in a favorable matchup. So for me, I wish to hope to have around 60 points at the end, and I hope to tackle some big scoring opponent or big scoring army with mine. So perhaps play the anvil, or perhaps do a big amount of damage at the army with full armor. So I hope I will make it for the team, and I hope the result will follow.
Thank you very much, Valmir. Let's listen now to Merlane, aka Talandria.
My name is de Jonkheer Merlijn, also known as Talandria. I'm 30 years old. I'm playing Sylvan Elves at the ETC. I've been playing the game for about 12 years, I think. I mean, I played it for quite a bit longer before, but that's not like actively competing in tournaments and such, more at home. So let's say 12 years. Things I like most about the game is the fact that it's with a bunch of guys that you actually make real connections with, that you can see back all over Belgium and even other countries, while just doing the geeky stuff that we do, playing with miniatures on tables and rolling dice. It's my first ETC. And I've been together with the Team Belgium group for, I think, about 6 years. I don't really remember with the COVID in between, but I've been around Geek quite a lot longer, so it's a bit fluid. But I would say about a year or six. I've done quite a lot international tournaments with Team Belgium, like the WTC. I did all the ones I could. We go to Luxembourg, to Germany. We do quite a lot with Team Belgium. If I would have to describe my objectives for the team, I think it's more like playing the balanced role. Just get stable results, take the odds bad matchup out of the group if we can, because my army is quite good at just not collapsing if I don't want it to, and just not lose bad. And for Team Belgium, I just hope everybody is happy at the end of the tournament and nobody's disappointed in themselves. Any objective I would have is, I think, completely connected to what I estimate the matches. I want to be sure I know how to estimate them properly and get the results I estimate. If that is a high number, all the better. If it's a lower number, but it meets my expectations, then that's also very good.
Okay, Merlane, thank you very much. We will now hear from our international superstar, Pascal, aka SmithF.
Hey everybody, my name is Pascal. My nickname is SmithF in the Ninth Age world, and I'm 36 years old. I'll be playing for Team Belgium this year at the ETC. So the story of me playing war games starts with the first edition of Hero Quest back in the early 90s, and I was hooked since that point. So I played Warhammer Fantasy Battles for the better part of my teen years, and then in my early 20s, and then when finally Fantasy Battles imploded, I moved on to the Ninth Age, which is a logical continuation of the war game. And so since then, I've been playing the Ninth Age, and I've been also participating from time to time with rules writing and with army book writing whenever I can. My favorite aspect of the game has to be movement and charging. I think that the game is won and lost in this phase, and it's the one that gives the most variety to games, as opposed, for example, to simpler war games that you can find, or even chess. Chess is very complex, but I think that Ninth Age, the amount of finesse you can bring into the movement phase is what attracts me most, and especially all the complicated charges with the overruns and trying to figure out how to best align your units so that you can get the most out of their combat potential. And my second favorite phase of the game, which is combat. ETC is the pinnacle of wargaming in the Ninth Age, and it's the event that we all wait for all year long. And I've been very fortunate to be able to participate since 2016, which was the first year when we played the Ninth Age, and I've been part of the Team Belgium ever since. So I'd say since late 2015, that's about 7 years of playing with this team, which is an excellent mix of players and of very fun people to be around. In this year's ETC, we are following a couple of years of pause, but prior to that, we, as Team Belgium, managed to every time do better and better in the various ETCs, with the top being in 2018 reaching the 4th place. So this has established Team Belgium as one of the slightly big players in the ninth age and a team to be reckoned with. And I hope that for this year we can maintain this reputation of being good players, a good team, but also a very fair and fun team to be around. So in terms of what I would like and what I hope that we can achieve in the CTC as a team, I'd say that being in the top 10 and why not going for a podium finish if we get lucky and we get the draw. The personal goals I've set for myself for the ZTC was the first one was to manage to go, and that's looking positive. The second one was trying to get to play as many new people as I can, and with as many different armies as I can. So it's for me, it gets repetitive when I get to play 4 or 5 games against Vampire Counts, for example. So if I manage to play new fun people with various types of armies, I'll be fun. I'll be happy. And finally, yeah, if I can. If I can maintain the estimation so that I don't drag down the team with me when I crash and burn.
Thank you very much, Pascal, for this introduction. Now hearing from Adrien, aka Strauss.
Well, my name is Adrien Jeanne. I'm 31, and I should be, if everything is okay, I should be 32 by the ETC. I go by Strauss, and I have absolutely no clue on why, actually. I think it's a nickname I started to use when I was like 13 playing video games. So I don't really have like a significant explanation or like any mind-blowing story behind it. Just sounded cool, I guess. I'm playing miniature games since, I don't know, about 12 years or something like that. So I like most people, I've discovered Warhammer Battle when I was a teenager, and then played a few years, not really following the rules and so on, but just being happy to push some minis and paint stuff. And then when I more or less joined university, I had like a hiatus of 2 years, 3-4 years maybe max, and then come back to the game in my early 20s, and it's been like 12 years now, I think, that I'm actively playing. What I like the most in this game, well, mostly that it's a complete hobby. So you have to build the miniatures, modify them if you like, and paint them, and finally play them, and all the theorycraft that goes with it. So it's very complete, very nice. And I'm quite excited about the full cycle of this game. This ETC will be my second ETC. I've been lucky enough to play for Belgium in 2019 in Cerbère Novi Sad. It was a great experience, and all in all, always happy to go to an international event. I've been going to such type of events, not ETC of course, but other type of events like WTC or the very nice tournaments that are hosted by our friends from Luxembourg, and so on. So that's also the beauty of Belgium. You know, we are close to France, we are close to the Netherlands, Germany, and Luxembourg, so it gives plenty of opportunities to go on a tourney. So for the team, my objective or the target that I think we should attain is maintaining our top 10. So I think over the last 3 ETC we were always in the top 10, sometimes even closer to the top 5. So I think we have a decent chance to do that. Top 10 would be very nice. Higher the better, of course, but I would say that that would be perfect if we can at least be in the top 10. And on a personal level, well, I think it's very simple. I've been to ETC once, and it was a humbling experience. I did okay, but not great either. So I think this year my objective would be to reach an overall total of at least 60 points, which means more or less 10 points per game. If I can do more, I'd be very happy. I just want to improve and at least deliver what I'm expected to do, and then that would be already a quite nice objective.
Thank you, Adrien, and we will now finish with 2 other players that will attend their first ever ETC this year, starting with Max, aka Tcho.
Je suis Maximilien, 36 ans, comme pseudo Tcho, et j'avais joué Daemon à l'ETC. Donc moi je joue à 9e âge depuis la sortie, vu que j'étais un grand fervent joueur de la V8 et de Battle V8. Et à la fin, avec End Times et tout ça, ils ont un peu arrêté les tournois, donc on a basculé directement sur 9e âge. Et pour Battle, je joue à ça depuis que je suis tout gamin. J'ai commencé, je devais avoir 12 ans. Puis après, ça s'est un peu perdu. Puis j'ai repris vers 2010 et j'ai seulement commencé à ce moment-là les tournois. Et puis depuis, j'ai plus jamais arrêté. Au niveau de mes aspects favoris du jeu, je dirais comme tout le monde, je pense un peu d'office le hobby parce qu'on met toujours, je veux dire, c'est la première vitrine du jeu et forcément c'est toujours un peu plaisant de monter son armée, peindre, etc. Mais je suis quand même plutôt un joueur compétition, donc c'est cet aspect-là que je développe le plus et qui me passionne le plus, le building de liste, le jeu en compétition, rencontrer de nouveaux adversaires et ouais, se développer au niveau des tournois. Au niveau de mon expérience à la Team ETC, moi c'est ma première fois. Donc j'ai été sélectionné dans la team élargie en 2019, mais ça compte pas vraiment étant donné qu'à partir de 2019 il y a eu la crise Covid et donc la sélection a été on va dire reportée jusqu'à maintenant jusqu'en puisse donc cette saison-ci. Et en dehors de ça, de l'expérience ETC donc qui est ma première, j'ai déjà fait 2 WTC, donc qui sont 2 gros tournois internationaux, je veux dire un peu plus libre au niveau de l'inscription. Toujours une fois en démon, une fois en Skaven, vu que les Skaven est ma première armée, mais là ici donc ça fait 2 ans que je joue les démons et que donc j'ai joué ici dernièrement en début d'année au WTC. Et sinon au niveau des tournois internationaux en général, je vais dire je les fais à peu près tous. J'ai juste skippé toute la partie qui n'était pas IRL, donc dans la vraie vie, parce que les tournois IB m'intéressaient beaucoup moins. Ça enlève un peu l'aspect que j'aime dans le 9e. Les objectifs que j'aimerais, je pense qu'on aimerait, je vais peut-être parler un peu au nom de tout le monde, mais atteindre, n'ayant pas l'expérience de base, je dirais que si on fait un top 10, je serais déjà bien content. Je pense, par rapport à ce qu'on a déjà fait à l'international, que ce soit séparément ou au dernier OETC justement, on peut atteindre cet objectif-là, j'espère en tout cas. Ce serait du coup un objectif atteint. Ouais. Si on top le 10, dans le top 10, c'est pour moi un objectif atteint. Après, c'est sûr que passer tout simplement un bon ETC, une bonne ambiance au sein du groupe, encore une fois, c'est une première expérience pour moi, donc on va voir un peu comment ça va se passer sur place. Donc, c'est sûr qu'au-delà du résultat pur et dur, passer 6 bonnes parties aussi avec les diverses équipes, essayer de pouvoir viser des équipes du top aussi, parce que c'est sympa d'affronter vraiment des gros joueurs, des grosses teams. Je trouve qu'on prend beaucoup d'expérience quand on joue comme ça des plus grosses équipes. Typiquement, si je reprends encore à nouveau l'exemple du WTC, on avait joué Pologne ou l'Allemagne, et on sent tout de suite qu'il y a quand même des niveaux bien différents, et ça permet pour moi de progresser. Donc cet aspect-là aussi, j'espère pouvoir l'avoir à l'ETC. Mon envie personnelle, je dirais que faut obtenir mes estimes, ça me paraît être je vais dire obvious, je crois que tout le monde va répondre ça, qu'il a envie de tenir ses estimes, mais ce serait déjà un bon début. Savoir tenir finalement son match positif ou pouvoir un peu diminuer l'impact d'un match négatif, ça rend bien pour l'équipe. Sinon, j'avais en tête, et c'est plus ou moins ce que j'ai fait au WTC, donc ça me semble pas déconnant d'avoir ça, une moyenne de plus ou moins 12. De l'autre côté, si tout le monde fait sa moyenne de 12, on se retrouve, je pense, dans le top 3 au final. Donc, c'est peut-être un peu prétentieux, mais si je pouvais atteindre cette moyenne-là, ça pourrait être pas mal. Je pense que j'ai l'armée qui le permet. C'est pas uniquement défensif, ça peut mettre quand même pas mal de points de bâche. Sinon, comme j'ai dit un peu au niveau de l'objectif de team, rencontrer des top players, ça pourrait être pas mal dans des grosses équipes pour se faire beaucoup d'expérience. Et sinon, en termes de hobby, j'espère que mes adversaires ont des superbes armées. Ça, c'est un truc que j'aime bien faire aussi dans les gros tournois. C'est de faire un peu le tour des tables, voir un peu tout ce qui a été fait aussi au niveau hobby, parce qu'il y a finalement, il n'y a pas que la bâche, il n'y a pas que il y a pas que ça, c'est pas que l'aspect, même si c'est ce que je recherche le plus, c'est quand même vachement intéressant un peu de voir ce que tout le monde a fait pour des gros événements comme ça. C'est vachement impressionnant. On se retrouve quand même dans un endroit où on a à plusieurs centaines, je pense que c'est 240 personnes qui sont liées par la même passion au même endroit. Et c'est quand même un objectif un peu sympa de voir comment s'organise ce genre d'événement à grande échelle.
Thank you, Tcho, and finishing now with John, aka Yilmi.
I am Jonathan Yilmaz, 35 years old, happy and tired dad of 3 young boys. I initiated them to the painting, mini, and wargaming. And this year will be my first ETC under the pseudo of Yilmi in Team Belgium with Empire of Sonnsthal. I started the hobby when I was teenager, but with a lot of interruption, like a lot of people, I think. And let's be honest, I misunderstood 90% of the rules at that time. I really started playing war games 8 years ago in a competitive way, starting the tournament in Belgium. And I was used to play vampire count for years. And since the first COVID confinement, I started to play Empire. And as I like it, I purchased a 3D printer and started building an army with a Japanese style. What I like very much in the Night Age and in wargaming in general, especially in the heroic fantasy field, of course, that's the hobby openness, I would say, with people, minis, etc. Creativity in making an army, in how you use it on the table. I'm very big fan of the hobby in a general way, and sometimes in kind of obsessional way. How much time we spend brainstorming about the lists. The percentage of mind solicitation is quite scary, I think. And also the tournament and optimization and balance set orientation of the game is very sexy in the Night Age. My first experience with the ETC was mainly collecting pictures and analyzing them, because in the past I was mainly playing with my brother and friends in the garage. And so analyzing pictures make me think about few tricks, as putting the dire wolf in 2 front column, for example. And then I learned a lot by following YouTubers, and some of them were participating to the ETC, so I was following that. And finally, my experience now for the ETC is mainly training with the team Belgium and participating to big tournament as WTC, for example. I think I joined the Belgium team 2 years ago, mainly to share some, let's say, thoughts about the game and to practice, let's say, outside the tournaments. And now it's more, let's say, serious training in preparation for the ETC. Team goal, from my perspective, is to reach good result, of course. Being like in the top 10 will be a very nice achievement. Continue to be gentlemen at table, and that all the team has fun during the game. And concerning my personal goals, it's to first do good estimation and at least hold them. Fight with honor with my samurai, and if losing, not losing a lot of points and taking XP and pleasure.
So thank you very much, guys. After this presentation of the member of the team, we'll now talk a little bit about the game itself, starting with the army composition. Perhaps, Artur, you can do a quite high-level comment on the choice of armies, where there mandatory armies, how were players brought to play these armies, so how did it work in practice?
It's a bit of a mixed approach, I would say. You know, between the 16 pre-selected players, we obviously could play every army, 2-3 times. So we really had the choice in terms of which armies did we want. Now, obviously, we're never going to force anyone to play a particular army. But at the same time, I felt like, in previous years, one of our weaknesses was that we wouldn't always take the strongest armies. We would, take the strongest players and have them, just pick whichever army they like. But that sometimes led to us, not having, 2 of the 3 strongest armies that year, them being absent from the team. And that's something I really wanted to avoid this year. So we really did a lot of, thinking early in the year, all right, which armies did we want? For instance, our my co-captain, IHDarklord, he's an old school Undying Dynasties player. He's been playing them for 5-6 years, I think. And he moved away from them to Infernal Dwarves because we both thought, all right, well, Undying Dynasties are one of the weakest armies at the moment. And we were right. They've been taken 2 times in 30 ETC teams. It's not worth us taking them to the ETC. Let's instead go with a way stronger army like Infernal Dwarves. And he's been doing fantastic with them. Same with me. I'm a Highborn Elf player, first and foremost. But I felt that the army really didn't cut it at the moment. we didn't force people into particular armies, but at the same time we did try to have the strongest armies possible in the team. So for something like Vermin Swarms, I really wanted to have on board. Warriors, we have them on. Well, we don't actually have them on board, but we initially did. But basically, the only army that I think we're kind of lacking a little bit is Warriors. We also don't have Dread Elves, but Elves tend to be very vulnerable in an ETC meta with their toughness 3 and their low model counts. They're quite vulnerable to bad luck, and that's really, really dangerous at an ETC. So I don't necessarily mind that we don't have them. Overall, I'm really, really happy with the selection, with the mix of armies that we have. We have all of the field top armies. I think we have Demons, we have Kingdom, we have Vermins, and then we have really solid support armies as well. Stuff like Infernal Dwarves, Empire, Ogre Kingdoms. Those are really, really good armies to have a supporting role. We have Sylvan Elves, which can be such a tricky army to play against for certain armies. It's really a tool in the pairings. The stuff that really just can't face up against Sylvan Elves. And so that's really a weapon, I think. So overall, I think we have more or less, given the mix of players that we have, the strongest possible mix of armies. ETC armies in general tend to be very point denial. They tend to be very, eager to preserve their points. There's not a lot that can bleed points in them. And I think in 6 or 7 of our lists, you'll find that theme. 6 or 7 of our lists can very easily, play a full game of Warhammer and lose maybe 300-400 points without opening the game. And that's really something that you need at ETC. In general, I'm really happy with our lineup.
In the interviews I have done with the players, solid is the word that comes back in the discussion, and I think that was the general idea of the team, saying, okay, there is kind of free choice on the armies, but like you said, a bit oriented, but especially for you and Guy. But please play lists that are solid, that are not parameter, scenario, or luck dependent. You need to be able to close a game, to keep your points and bring your estimation. I think that very well reflected in the list, like you said.
Yeah. Basically, the instructions that we gave, maybe that's interesting to give along. The instructions that I gave to people when they were building their lists there were 3 guidelines that we gave. Like, have as few bad matches as possible. Make sure that there's as little armies as possible that you just can't face. Then we wanted lists that were good as possible in very neutral matches, very stable matches. Lists that could turn 10 10s into 12 8s, or that could turn 9 11s into 11 9s. So we wanted lists that were as good as possible in very closed, standoffish games. And third of all, we wanted people, if possible, to bring a binding scroll, because it's so annoying on a team level meta. And you'll notice, I think we have 5 of the 7 armies that could take a binding scroll end up taking a binding scroll, or even 6 out of the 7. Those were the 3 instructions that I gave to people when they drafted their list, and you need to see that reflected. All of the lists are so solid, so stable.
Perhaps the last thing we could discuss a bit about before moving to the list themselves is about the training process of the team. So perhaps before the final selection, between the final selection and the list submission, and after the list submission, what is planned. So perhaps you can give a word about it.
In general, we had a few practices online. We participated in some online tournaments. We got spanked hard by the USA. Shout out to Schmidt, who's also on YouTube. They really kicked our asses. We organized training days, of course, as well. We had training sessions. But in general, we don't go as far or as wild as some of the other teams go. I know that, for instance, certain teams, what they will do is they will come together for a weekend, and instead of playing, or a day, and instead of playing 2 games, they'll play the deployments and the first turn 4 times, and then they will abort, saying, all right, just to practice the beginning of the game, or they will just practice deployments. They will, they'll be with 10 in the room, and they'll just practice the deployments against each other, saying like, all right, here I think you should have done this and this and that and that. We don't go that far. We also, like, for instance, don't have that in-depth discussions. We have the Discord, of course, but we don't. There's definitely teams that prepare harder than us in terms of how much preparation they do. We just we get together, we play solid games, we develop our skills, and obviously we discuss all decent teams do. It's really a team effort, not 8 individuals. We really discuss, all right, how will we as a team tackle vermin swarms? How do we as a team approach the pairings? How can you as a player, do your role in the team better? What is something, that in general you have to as a player watch out for? We try to give each other this time some forms of feedback. And that's really, a way for players to grow. For instance, I remember Strauss, our Ogre player. A few years ago, he was a strictly defensive player. He was really, really solid, good at defending his 9, but he wouldn't turn his 9 into a 15 if the opponent made a mistake. And then throughout the course of the year, I really, I was amazed at how much he'd grown in that regard. At some point at the WTC, one of the biggest practice tournaments we went to, he called me, he took time out, he said, like, so, Thomas, what I want to do is flee that, then this, then this, then this. And he had this entire, he had 1.5 game turns mapped out. And I was like, well, yeah, Strauss, yeah, I think that works. I think you're going to win 20-0. And he did, An hour later, he came by and said, like, yeah, everything went as we mapped out. And it was because his opponent had made this teeny tiny mistake, and he just punished it so hard. And that's really something, that grew into his game, as he practiced, as he, maybe people also, told him, like, look, you sometimes tend to be a little bit passive as a player, dare to punish what you think is a mistake. And he's really grown so much in that regard. Same for me. I used to be a very reactive player who struggled to dictate the pace of the game. And then people told me, like, Thomas, you're really good, but why don't you ever open the game yourself? Why do you always wait for the opponent to open the game? And so I worked on that. That's basically, I think, our approach. We practice and we teach each other, but we don't necessarily do very specific and detailed preparations like for instance, Poland or Germany might do.
Yeah, I think this is basically the global idea of Team Belgium, reflecting the kind of country we are. So we want to grow, we want to professionalize, we want to be more than decent and to be real contenders to the ETC or like any other competition. We are still realistic about the amount of players we have, the amount of good players we have, and we are also focused on keeping a real human mental and to keep the team really human, not become a kind of deployment bot and things like that. So yeah, I think this really reflects the country, and this is a very good thing, I think.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, we definitely don't. We don't play for money. We don't play for any prize. So it's really not worth it to turn people into machines, to drill people. That's definitely not the point.
Okay, Artur, thank you very much. So let's now talk about your own list with Kingdom of Equitaine.
So the list that plays a fairly standard Kingdom of Equitaine list. There's nothing particularly original or special about it. It basically revolves around a cavalry brick, a really, really solid unit of cavalry with a million attacks, and then a lot of flyers that turn around it. I went for this list because I think it's one of the strongest books, if not the strongest book in the game at the moment, the Kingdom book. It's a little bit broken between us. And at the same time, I felt like I could replicate a lot of the principles that I use when I play Highborn Elves. Highborn Elves is my main army, it's the one I'm most familiar with. But I felt that this year they're really too weak at the moment to take them to the ETC. So I play this, but it's fairly similar in that you have this very solid unit that anchors your battle line. In the Highborn Elves, that would have been the Sea Guard. Here, that's the Questing Knights. And then you have a lot of flying, flyers, flying units that harass and move around it. I had a feeling that both lists play in a rather similar way. It's a fairly aggressive army. It obviously wants to push, wants to get stuck in the middle of things. It's really good against stuff with monsters because you have them all that can one-shot most monsters. Basically, the only monster I think in a game that he's slightly worried about is a Gorpak. Demons are a fantastic matchup. I have, a lot with divine attacks. I have divination. So that's a great matchup. Everything that lacks mobility. Infantry combat armies are also something that I'm really good against. In general, I'm pretty good against other combat armies that don't have flyers, because then I can really, really pick my battles. I'm almost immune to chaff with it. There's maybe 2 units in my armies that you want to chaff. That's really, really a big advantage that I have over other combat armies. So in general, I think my preferred matchups would be stuff like Demon Legions. Certain warriors are pretty good. And generally speaking, other combat armies that can't hurt me too much at range. Really static gun lines are also really good. A really static Empire army is also not something I fear. It's also something I can get stuck in. I don't really think we have roles. We shouldn't have, at least. That's at least the philosophy of the team, to really, get the best set of matchups that's available to us. And it doesn't matter who gets, slightly iffy matchups and who gets the really good matchups. And I think my army, like I hope all armies in the team, is really solid for that. It can easily play for, a 7 or an 8 in a tricky matchup, lose a bit of points, draw the scenario. But generally speaking, I think what the army is best at is probably, go and look for the points. Go for a 14, 15, not a huge victory, but it's very good at getting safe victories, which matches my style really well. I brought up my Highborn Elves earlier. That's how I used to play with the Highborn Elves, and I feel like I can do the same with the Kingdom of Equitaine. And I think that's, if all goes well, my role in the team. Get a fairly good matchup and get a really good result in it. That being said, I'm also really open to playing the shittier matchups. I tested Kingdom, I like to play all armies from time to time on UB, where it's very easy, you test something, you feel like, all right, is this my thing? So I know I played them a few times throughout the year just to get a feel for them. And then really intensively training with them. I've been doing that for like 3 or 4 months. I think I've played a good 20 games with them now, and I hope to get in another 10 or so before the ETC. And that way, with 30 games under my belt, I'll be good and ready to score well with them. Particularly since I went for an archetype that is the archetype that I like to play. The static combat block plus flyers around it. And that's the archetype that I know how to play. So from the get-go, from the first game I played with it, it felt very familiar and it felt very intuitive to play with it. And if you look at my Highborn Elf list, the Sea Guard match the Questings, the Frosties match the Pegasus, the Griffin Lord matches the Peg Lord. So there's really a lot of overlap.
Perfect. Let's now hear from Guy and his Infernal Dwarves.
My goal, my role in the team is being the tank. I am there to take the match nobody else wants. I am there to make sure we have a good base for the team and that our green matches, our aggressive armies, get all the opportunities to score big points. I've been playing Infernal Dwarves for almost 1 year now, which is very limited. But I have played quite a lot of battles with him. I think about 120 to 130 matches now. I have an idea what to do. I know how they play. I won't. My goal, my role in the team is being the tank. I am there to take the match nobody else wants. I am there to make sure we have a good base for the team and that our green matches, our aggressive armies, get all the opportunities to score big points. I've been playing Infernal Dwarves for almost 1 year now, which is very limited. But I have played quite a lot of battles with him. I think about 120 to 130 matches now. I have an idea what to do. I know how they play. I won't be the master of the army. Luckily, the army is not extremely difficult to play very well.
Thank you, Guy, and very nice army, by the way. Let's now hear from Valmir and his Vermin Swarms.
So, as I said, I will play Vermin Swarm. So, for this time, what I will fit is a Navy magic with the bell, with the triumvirate, with the Call of the Apostate, allowing me many spells that I can play on movement and against the movement of the opponent, and to unleash hell with the Wrath of God. I've got also many stuff that can zone and block the path of the opponent army with the Assassin, with the Doomblade, with the Doomspark, with the Cannon, and I've got also a big blocks of infantry. I've got 3x50 dude with 1x25 that push the bell, so that's 4 big blocks with combination with the Life is Cheap rule. All those blocks could hold and even win if I faced some unit with few attacks. What I should do is to avoid being surrendered and avoid to be combo charge. So everything will be on position, good deployment, and a bit of readability of what should do my opponent. So that's maybe difficult, but I think it can have many rewards because I've got Doomspark, I've got many bodies, and with all that stuff I can really tank and even anvil what the opponent can launch at me, and then turn it good and kill what he can throw. I think I'm maybe with that list a nerf killer, maybe KOE killer. I guess against chaos is good too. Perhaps some weakness against some build of dwarf with some war machine and stuff like that, because they can trade expensive unit of mine, but I think little dwarf will die or in exchange. So I think it's quite a polyvalent build for the goal to can play nearly everything and not too much specialize. We'll see if the approach was good. My journey with Vermin Throne began with the new book, as everybody opened it with all his new surprise and all the stuff that we are still crying on it, and all the other that we are really, really happy to have. It's a book with many tools and many cool rules and many stuff that can be based on luck and based on bait and reward. So perhaps it's really great to play, but sometimes it's a bit frustrating. But I'm still going on that. I was already playing Vermin Swarm into 2019, and for this time, I can say that I played at least around, for that variation, from 3 months around. I've done the mega defensive one, which nobody plays, but it was nearly good, but it was defensive. And as about the game, it's more about objective, and objective need to be on the offensive. It's perhaps better for a team event like the ETC to have a list that can go into all the table or nearly all the table and then draw or win all the objectives. So that's why the build is done in that way.
Okay, thank you very much, Frank. Let's now hear from Melaine and his Sylvan Elves.
The general idea of my list is that it is good at most things. Being Sylvan Elves, of course, it's always a bit worse at scoring the objective. But we try to work with that with the Forest Rangers in particular. They are fearless, pretty good at scoring and not running away. Other than that, we went for a list that I'm basically familiar with some Wild Huntsmen, the Dancers, and the Druidism magic. It's what I've been playing for a few years, always small iterations of the same thing, really. And that is just to make sure I have max out shooting, can play the shooting game and not commit if I don't have to, but I have some combat units that actually deliver some punch, like a Wild Huntsman Lord is a Wild Huntsman Lord. Everybody knows to be careful. As I've said about my army, it's what I've been playing for like a long time. Always small changes, and I usually get the points I think I will get, which is usually pretty drawish. And I also tend to take a lot of the bad matchups because I'm used to it and I know how to deal with it. So it's pretty 10ish. If you would look at the average, it's probably around there. So I think that also reflects in my role as a team, which is just holding the ground against tough matchups, so the other ones can get the juicy ones.
Thank you very much, Melaine. Now it's up to Pascal and his Beast Birds.
So in this EDC, I will be playing the Beast Herds, which is an army I've been playing for, actually since a bit before the first lockdown, so it's been a couple of years now. And it is an army that focuses on movement and on aggressive maneuvers and on trying to get the most combats and the most favorable combats, and to just roll up a flank and get the very favorable result by eliminating the most out of the opponent's army. So it's not an army that plays very safely for a 10-10 result or for a small loss. So my list focuses on mobility and on special deployment with Beast Herd, which is something that they do very well. And what that brings to the table is an army that is combat heavy and that can assault the enemy army from all sides very early in the game. So the role of the Beast Herds in this year's team is that of a point getter, an army that can be paired into the right matchup and that can push the advantage to get quick and efficient results, which helps a lot. And when another 7 people are playing at the same time and need to know how games are going. So with Beast Herds, very quickly you know if the game is going well or not. And on top of that, from time to time they can surprise the opponent because there are not very many beaster players, and especially not many with lists like the one I'm bringing this year. And this can surprise people, causing them to evaluate badly a match and allowing the beasts to bring in a favorable result in a bad matchup. So I've been using Beast Herds for the past close to 2 years, more intensely in the previous year when I played a similar army, and I think I managed to play more than 50 games overall in a high level, hyper-competitive level. So this iteration draws very heavily upon my experience from last year's Beast Herd list, and with the points updates, I was even able to add some extra items, some extra quality of life options that made it better. But this year I've played less, but still managed to get a good 20-30 games with beasts in preparation for the ETC, and the preparation is still going, so hopefully I'll get some more before we get there.
Let's continue with Strauss and his magnificent army of Ogre cats.
So this year I'm attending ETC with the Ogre cats. I'm quite excited because it's a big change for me. I've been historically more an ID player, but I don't know. I wasn't so stoked or excited by the last lab, so I decided to change a little bit of army. As for the list itself, well, I'm without going into the details. I think one of the main, I would say, incentive or advice that we got from the overall team is to try to reach for a stable and flexible army and a list this. So I think that Ogre cans are the perfect candidate for that. My list in particular is not extremely pushy nor extremely shooty, but it can do both. It can also be well, defensive when needed. So I think it's quite flexible. Not sure whether I will be always able to score big, but normally, if I'm not playing like a dumb guy, I shouldn't lose by a big margin. So that's a bit the idea and the mechanism that we were trying to put in place. So being very stable. I also think that the army and the list are quite built to bring some points. Probably not one of the pushiest, but definitely I think it could give me some great openings, and I will try to seize them. And it's been like 9 months, almost a year now, that I'm training with ogres. So at first it was a bit painful, but now it's get more and more funny to play.
Okay, thank you very much. Another magnificent army with Max, aka Tcho, and his Diamond Legends.
Pour parler un peu de la liste et de l'objectif de ma liste Daemon. Donc la liste permet en fait d'avoir déjà donc un gros mouvement, donc ça permet d'avoir une bonne présence sur la table, une bonne mobilité et de pouvoir empêcher pas mal de listes en face de pusher trop facilement. Ensuite, donc elle permet une grosse AP, donc elle permet d'aller chercher pas mal de choses armurées en face. Par contre, évidemment, c'est une liste démon, donc elle va avoir ses faiblesses, je veux dire, traditionnelles. Il suffit qu'en face, il y ait déjà un master divination, ça va temporiser un peu mes estimations. Mais elle permet aussi, et ça c'est ce que je voulais aller chercher avec magicien, d'avoir le double mouvement magique, en plus de leur gros mouvement. Ça permet de plus facilement jouer l'objectif. Ça permet aussi de pouvoir refuser des matchs quand ils sont vraiment pas bons. Donc j'ai du coup un Master Evoke, donc qui permet d'aller chercher ses points et tout en ayant un gros mouvement pour pouvoir éviter des matchs trop compliqués. Je dirais que de base c'est quand même une liste de par son mouvement, comme je disais, qui push pas mal. Donc ça va être l'objectif, ça va être quand même de marquer des points. Après je peux totalement, comme je disais, fermer la game en me servant des doubles mouvements, des mouvements c'est entre 10 et 20, donc de pouvoir bien bouger sur la table. Qu'est-ce que je peux aller chercher? Plutôt peut-être commencer par l'inverse, que je peux moyennement aller chercher. Comme je disais, les listes avec la divination, qui par essence est un domaine qui embête le démon, étant donné qu'il empêche souvent ou donne des divines attaques, donc qui pose problème aux invulnérables des démons, qui est un peu notre seule protection. La Bretonie est compliquée à aller chercher parce qu'elle va être amenée à avoir des multiples PV, des divines attaques, un Master Divi. Je pense que dans les listes que j'ai vues, il y a à peu près que ça dans cette armée-là. Les listes un peu shooty sont un peu compliquées mais temporisées parce que j'ai énormément de hard target, enfin cibles difficiles vu qu'on parle en français, sur beaucoup d'entrées de mon armée, donc ça donne pas mal vite avec un couvert et des longues distances, des difficultés pour l'adversaire qui jouerait plus sur le tir à aller me chercher. Je dirais que des listes un peu plus statiques à pavé et qui n'auraient pas trop de blast, ce serait typiquement le liste que j'aimerais aller chercher. Si je joue des listes qui peuvent aligner des canons aussi, c'est pas évident, de par le fait que je joue 2 gros persos qui valent très très cher et que les D3 PV ça peut vite être dramatique. La liste là en l'état, je passe 50 parties avec, mais par contre j'ai joué toujours des variantes, par exemple une fois avec 2 blazing, une fois plutôt avec 2 chars, une fois il y avait pas les flies, enfin les mouches, une fois voilà, donc c'était très très proche de ce que je joue aujourd'hui. Et donc du coup, on va dire que cette liste-là, malgré tout, je m'entraîne depuis à peu près 1 an avec, ou en tout cas des variantes de ça. C'est déjà ce que je jouais presque liste pour liste au WTC. C'est ce que j'ai aussi joué, ou en tout cas très proche, au dernier tournoi du Luxembourg international. Pour l'entraînement que je fais, la plupart du temps, donc moi je suis pas un joueur, je vais dire clavier souris, c'est-à-dire que je joue très très peu, voire pas du tout sur internet. Du coup, depuis la reprise je vais dire des tournois IRL, je les fais à peu près tous. J'ai un petit club aussi où je peux faire quelques parties du côté de Mons, et globalement on va dire que je tourne en moyenne à 6-7 parties par mois, avec toujours la même liste depuis 1 an. Donc voilà ce que ça donne au niveau d'expérience sur cette liste-là.
And we finish in beauty again with a magnificent army with John and his Empire of Sonnsthal army.
My list, as I spoiled before, is Empire of Sonnsthal in a feudal Japanese style, and I'm kind of anti-push and defensive list. Quite okay to play the different scenarios, and I can tank some points and be a kind of nightmare for range and sensitive armies. I pick, let's say, the entries with a nice armor like the big cavalry, the steam tank, and a nice magic and fun characters. My role in the team meta, let's say I'm here to counter some of the top tiers army as Warrior of the Dark Gods and Daemon and Dread Elves. I don't have an army designed to score big, but I could block some of the offensive army and I can hold some points in the difficult matchup. I started to play in 2020 with Empire of Sonnsthal, making several matches on UB and French team tournaments. Since then, I bring in the Belgium real life tournaments and play about, let's say, 1 game per week.
So here we are for the army composition and the army lists. Let's now again give the floor to the captain to talk a little bit about the objectives of the team for this year's ETC.
Well, I think that first and foremost, our main goal and by far our most important one is to have a great time. You know, to meet amazing players from all around the world, hopefully from several different continents, and to have a blast with them, to catch up with familiar faces in the Warhammer scene, to have a great time together with the boys. And I think if we manage that, if every one of us comes home and says like, well, that was a fantastic weekend, then I think our weekend will have been a success, regardless of whether we finish first or last. So I think that's definitely our number one goal, to be great sportsmen and to be great adversaries for our opponents. That's definitely, I think, the most important goal that we have. That being said, that's the unsexy answer, of course. I think in terms of skill level, in terms of, how good we are based on pure raw skill lists, etc., I would guess that we're probably about the 8th country, more or less, 7th, 8th, 9th, something like that. I think that if we can finish in the top 10, that would be amazing. Because obviously there's a high variance. If in round 6 you're unlucky and you play Germany or Poland and you get capped, well, then you're going to finish lower than if the tournament only had 5 rounds, or if the tournament had 7 rounds. Reversely, if you're lucky and you play, let's say, a slightly weaker team in the last round and you cap them, a team was slightly overachieving, they end up facing you in the last round and you cap them, then you could even finish top 5. 6 games is I think in general not enough to seed 30 teams into a real good ranking. So I would say that if we don't finish in the top half of teams, then that would be an underperformance, I think. That would really, I mean, I don't want to call it a disappointment because that's too big a word, but then I think we wouldn't have gotten out, the maximum out of it. And then I think top 10 would be amazing. But really, we could do a lot better than top 10 still. At the top level, the difference between players are so small, and a little bit of luck makes such a big difference. Luck in terms of the dice, luck in terms of the draw, who you face up against. I don't think top 5 is unrealistic for us. And who's to say that we couldn't win the whole thing, I mean, if we only roll amazing rolls, make our Snake Eyes break tests, we need 3 lethal strikes, there we got them, on 3 dice, it's a game of dice, and we're really, really good players, and I don't think the odds of us winning are less than 1% of us winning the ETC. But, that's me dreaming, of course. But if I had to, make an estimation of where I think we will end up, something like 9th would really, be a good reflection, I think, of our skill level. Mostly, I also hope that everybody has a solid ETC themselves, that there's nobody who realizes after 2 or 3 games that they made a horrible mistake in the list and that it doesn't work, and that they made a mistake and it doesn't work, and disaster struck. So that's definitely also an objective for us as a team. Put all 8 members of the team in a spot where they can succeed. And I think in terms of preparations, we did that. And now, it's up to us to also do that at the ETC in Pesaro itself.
Okay, thank you very much, Artur. Nice objectives for this year's ETC. I hope that you will perform. We would like now to close this video by hearing a little word, a little remark or advice from each player of the team, dedicated to the community, and especially the Belgian one that will look at this video, starting again with the captain, Artur.
I would add, as a captain, part of my thank you as a player was already mine as a captain. But I think as a captain, I would most of all, want to say that I'm quite flattered, that people are trusting me to follow me, onto a plane for 3 hours and then a train for an hour to go play wargaming, that they tag along with me and that they have, faith in the fact that I can, put them in a spot where they can have first of all, a great time, and second of all, a very good result, hopefully. It's going to be a very interesting ETC because with the whole COVID, shtick that we lived through for 2-3 years, I feel the level in the community has really increased because as we were in lockdown, people couldn't play, and what did they do? They just played online every day. So the level of the community has really increased. I noticed it in Belgium. If today's Team Belgium played like 3 years ago Team Belgium, I think we would cap them quite easily. So our level has grown, but the level of our opponents has also really, really grown. So I think it's going to be a very, very interesting ETC. I think there's going to be a lot of teams doing really, really solid. I think the competition is going to be really, really tough in terms of skill, in terms of preparation. But that's what makes it even more fun, right?
Yeah, and that will definitely be a good marker to put Belgium where its real skill level is. I think after those, like you said, 2 years of COVID and online play, and after the very good results you had in 2018 and 2019. Thank you, Artur. Now a little word from his first co-captain, Guy.
What I would say to the Belgian community who's not coming to DTC, next year is a new year. We'll definitely have a lot of new people coming in to try to join to DTC. But even if you're not selected, even if you don't think you're good enough, don't hesitate to be part of Team Belgium. Don't hesitate to be involved in the ETC or in the group of people we have. Everybody is very nice, and everybody wants to do as well as possible. Everybody is welcome, and you really should try to join to an ETC. It's the most amazing event of the year, for sure. To everybody going to the ETC, or who's already involved with Team Belgium, I'd say go and keep on fighting for that spot next year. It will be the best.
Nice words, Guy. Now moving on, the other co-captain, Valmir.
First of all, I wish to thank a lot the former captain Gregor, because he really forged and crafts a community and a good group that wish to make the work possible for the ETC. Really, we go on a solid base, and I wish we go on confirmation of the result that we've done before. So a big thanks to what have been done by previous captain for all this job and what he still bring to the community and to the team.
Thank you very much, Frank. Now moving on, Melane, aka Talandria.
I feel like the thing that people need to do in the community and around it is just try it. There's a lot of people that will help you with everything you want or need. There's so many people just answering any question you have on the Facebook page, on our Discord of Belgium, 9th Age group. So much help is there. Just try it. Even if you don't have models, nobody really cares at the start. You can just jump in, start playing, and build your army as you go. There's nobody going to look at you odd or strange if you come over with a half-painted army or you're printing it along the way. Just start playing the game, and people will make you go further than you ever think possible.
A quick word now from Pascal.
So yeah, as a last message to our Belgian community, first of all, it's great to have one. Because Belgium is one of the countries that has the quite active community that's quite mobile and goes to tournaments, and we get to play a lot with each other, know each other, and get to evolve together as generals, as wargamers. So that's great. I think that others have pointed out that Team Belgium is an open project that welcomes everyone that wants to participate and to learn more about the game. And I think that for me, the key elements to this is participate and to also debrief your games with opponents. Everyone is always in the Team of Belgium always takes the time to discuss mistakes, to discuss other options, and that's the way forward to becoming a better player. And that's what we do in our trainings time and time again. We have a rule that says we do not blame dice and we do not blame lists, and because that's the way to learn more about the game, to just try and evaluate what the best option would have been in a given situation, given your list and given your dice.
Thank you, Pascal. Now, moving on, a quick word from Strauss.
My couple of last remarks or last notes would start with the fact that I thank you, Agrel, for giving us this nice opportunity to be represented, to be a bit more visible. I think it's great for us, mostly also for the community, that I think that most of them are already knowing some team members, but it's good that we can have an overview, and I think that we would definitely gain a lot of energy, but also positivity in general if we are more connected to the community. So it's great. So definitely thankful for that. On the other hand, yeah, I'd like also to make sure we will contribute to the community as well, in the sense that in 2019 I was covering a little bit the ETC via Facebook Lives and stuff. It's something I intend to do this year again, and then maybe share some impression from Pesaro. So definitely wants to make sure that the people staying in Belgium or being on holiday could feel and taste a little bit of the ETC, and that could spark some ambition for next year, and trying to join us in this great experience.
Thank you very much. Hearing now from Tcho.
Si ça vient toucher des gens qui seraient des anciens de battle ou même carrément des nouveaux, si ça peut donner un petit coup de boost et de passion, tout ce qu'on est en train de faire au niveau médiatique sur le 9e âge en Belgique, ça peut être vachement sympa. Donc comme je disais, personnellement je suis dans la région de Mons. Tous ceux qui seraient dans une région assez proche, faut pas hésiter à prendre contact. avec moi directement ou dans des clubs liés à cette région-là, qui globalement ramèneront vers moi, vu que dans la région de Mons, on n'est pas si nombreux que ça à jouer. Mais si ça peut développer, ne fût-ce que une petite passion chez 2-3 personnes supplémentaires dans la région, on est toujours preneur. C'est un jeu super cool avec une communauté assez sympa, soudée en Belgique. On n'est pas 50 000, donc tout le monde se connaît. C'est toujours assez familial. J'organise pas mal de tournois, que ce soit dans la région ou ailleurs, via Adrien. Et voilà, si ça peut susciter, je vais pas dire des vocations, mais si ça peut susciter une motivation ou une passion chez des nouveaux joueurs, que ce soit anciens battle ou carrément nouveaux, ça peut être cool, ça peut être sympa, n'hésitez pas.
Thank you very much, Max. And we finish with the players with Yilmi.
First of all, Belgium community is great. I think I have one of the highest tournament participation rate on T3. So I face a lot of Belgium community players, and it always has been a very nice experience. So for the one who don't participate to the tournament and play in their garage with bro and friends and listen to let's say YouTube and watch YouTube Night Age YouTubers, don't hesitate to come. I really recommended it. Come and exchange with other players on Discord, on Facebook, and in events. Bring your friends, asking them to remove the dust from their minis, and let's enjoy together this nice, complete, and open hobby.
Thank you very much, guys, for these nice words dedicated to the Belgian community and the 9th Age community as a whole. This video now comes to its conclusion. I hope that the video interested you. I know that this is a very specific format, the first ever English content on the channel, probably not the last, but I hope that this helped you know a bit more about Team Belgium and perhaps in general how an ETC team forms, how it prepares for the big events, how can you join this kind of team, and I hope that this will motivate some of you to come in tournaments, meet these lovely guys, encourage them through the ETC, follow their results, and perhaps one day apply to the extended group and perhaps also to the final group. So thank you very much for having followed this video. I know that this is quite long, but with 8 players plus 2 coach and a general comment from the captain, that was obviously expected. I hope that this content interested you. As always, do not hesitate to comment, to share, to give your feedback on the format, on the content. I think that this game deserves better visibility, both on the Belgian but also on the international level. So I hope that this kind of content can help people know a bit more about the game, the competitive field, and also the team that will represent them at the ETC. Thank you very much. I hope that we will see you soon again on Unlisted channel. Subscribe if you want to follow our content. Share to touch the maximum people. That was Agreal and Team Belgium on Unlisted. Thank you very much. See you soon, guys.